Welcome to Think on This, the podcast where we uncover the human side of leadership and explore the stories, struggles, and sparks behind people who are making a difference in the world. Today's guest is a true force of entrepreneurial grit and creativity. Merrilee Kick, the founder of BuzzBallz, went from high school teacher to multi-million-dollar beverage mogul. She's not only built one of the fastest-growing women-owned beverage companies in the world, but she's also redefined what it means to lead with courage, creativity, and adaptability. Get ready for a story of vision and soulful leadership. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Think on This. My guest today, who I'm very excited about, is Merrilee Kick. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So let's get right into it. So tell us what BuzzBallz is.
Well, BuzzBallz are ready-to-drink cocktails in all different types of bases of alcohol. So there's wine base, spirit base, malt base, and that's primarily so that we can get into all different kinds of retail outlets based on liquor laws. But primarily, ready-to-drink cocktails on the go, single serve, about 15% alcohol, and about 15 different flavors.
Okay, cool. So how many stores are you in?
I have no idea. We sell in all 50 states,
Okay.
all retail chains, and then 32 countries. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, cool. So one thing I like about your story is I believe when you founded it, you weren't in your peak moments of your life. I think
Oh,
your marriage, you were separated and you were looking for a way to be more financially independent. And so just wasn't the best time in your life, yet you came up with this life-changing idea and business. Tell us about that window of time.
well, the window of time was very scary because, like you said, I was going through a rough time with my marriage, but financially, I only made about $55,000 a year. I was a teacher, and teachers don't get paid much money. But I was trying to find a way to be financially independent. There's no crystal ball that says it's going to succeed or fail, or how you're going to react to it once it gets up and rolling. Like, how much time will you put into it? Will it feed your passion? Will it be exciting for you? Will you want to carry on?
Mhm.
And I've been on both sides of business where, you start a business and it wasn't really your passion and you didn't force it to succeed. And then this business was my passion. It was something I had to make succeed out of fear of failure, in that if I did fail, I would go bankrupt. So that was the impetus driving behind it. And then it became a love, a love for what I was doing. I just loved making the alcoholic beverages, loved working with my sons. And then my husband actually got hired later, like after about 7, 8 years into building the business, I hired my husband and we ended up patching things up and we're still together today, like 38 years of marriage. So a long time.
Well, that's so cool. Yeah. So you've had experience with starting something and not being quite passionate about it, and then doing something where I guess you were operate. It sounds like you were operating a little bit by fear, and then once you got both feet in, it became your passion. Is that pretty much what
Yeah.
I'm hearing?
It just kind of energizes you to pull in and have something cool, a
Yeah.
fun, um, a fun job. A lot of people I talk to, it's like, wow, that's a terrible job. You work in a mortuary or you work in a, it's like, I would
Yeah.
hate that every day coming into work knowing that I'm dealing with that every day. It would be hard. But what I did was a cool job and it was fun and it was fun for my kids too. And, they've grown up in the business. They're in their 30s now. And, it's
Well, and
made
you
a
got
nice
to
life
drink
for
on the
them.
job. Well, I mean, what more can you ask
Right,
for?
right. We could do that for sure.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that whole thing. I mean, there have been times I was a video producer for 40 years or so. And there were times when I would be in the middle of a project, and I would go, I cannot believe I get paid for this. It was so, I'd wake up excited to go edit, and it sounds like that's what you had. You were very passionate about it, and, you were excited to wake up and go to work, right?
Yeah, I love the environment. I love the people. I loved pulling into the driveway of, the parking lot and knowing that that all these cars in the parking lot are people that I am feeding their families. I'm
Yeah.
giving them an opportunity to succeed, and they love the job and they loved me, and I loved being there with them.
You employed quite a few people, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, BuzzBallz has about 1,000 employees or so, but and we've got 1 million square feet of production facility. But after I sold the company to Sazerac, they're about 10 times bigger than we are.
Yeah.
And they're a behemoth in the industry,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of different brands. So we bolted on to their brands. And so now, they've got 10,000 employees of their own and 1,000 of BuzzBallz. So, it's been quite a journey, and they've done a remarkable job with the brand, really getting it out there, and especially overseas. I mean, just incredible work.
Oh. So while we're on that subject, so you built the company up to a certain point. Was it, I know some companies, once they get to a certain point, they will say, okay, to grow, much bigger and faster, we need to bring in kind of sell basic. Like, was that the situation you were in?
Yeah, it's exactly the situation we were in. We could have stayed the course and run it ourselves and grown organically throughout the years. That would have taken us probably another 4 or 5 years to
Hmm.
get to the point of where Sazerac could take us.
Right.
Another thing is when you get bigger and you become the number one ready to drink cocktail in America, people come after you and they want to copy you. They don't want to go through the rigmarole of learning all this themselves. They'd rather just copy what you did and then knock off what you did, and then try to shortcut the circuit there to get right into making money. Legal stuff that you have to deal with, and hurdles and expense, and know-how of, and just good lawyers that you have to deal with.
Hmm.
But it's a different beast when you get to a certain size and you want to be here. It
Hmm.
sometimes takes Big Brother up here to help you get there, so
Sure.
that's kind of what we did.
Sure. Yeah. 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 It makes perfect sense. So, one of the things I love about your story is that you got into this business and then uh, you had never been in the business before. You didn't
Yeah.
really know all the details about it, but you were both feet in and trying to figure out what the heck to do. I think I read where you said you were, Google was your best friend, so you had to learn as you go. And there's an old saying of it, and I don't know if this is the case, but we had to build the plane while it was in the air. Was that kind of what it was like
Yeah,
for you?
exactly what it was like. I think people that are afraid to fail, and then they won't let themselves fail, that's a problem. It's not being afraid to fail, it's not allowing yourself to fail. So, if you have to fail, but you'll fail and then you autocorrect. You fail and then you autocorrect, and then you get better and better and better. But if you don't let yourself even try, then you fail automatically. You just
Right.
completely shut off the valve. So what we did was we made mistakes while we were going through it. We learned to be the best in making those ready to drink cocktails. And then we expanded and expanded and expanded. But it wasn't without error. It wasn't without failure. It wasn't without making mistakes and then correcting and starting again and
Yeah.
and doing it the right way. So
Yeah.
I think that's just part of the learning curve.
Yeah, I would imagine the engineering of the bottles, because I don't think there was ever a bottle out there, period, anywhere in the world, That was a ball, right?
I
Um,
know.
did you get the idea from a Christmas ornament? Was that?
No, I lived in Stockholm, Sweden, for about 5 years with my family, when we were overseas. And Orifers made these little snowball candles. I think I have one. Do you want me to go get one
Um,
just to show it to
sure.
you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That's a
hold
good
on
idea.
Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's
Oh,
a
right.
candle holder. And it's made of crystal. It's very heavy, and it's called a snowball. It was made by Orfers. Anyway, that was the idea, was I could make a little round cocktail in a ball like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that was interesting when I lived in Sweden is we went up to this place called the Ice Hotel, and it's up in Kiruna, which is up in northern Sweden by the North Pole. And they served us in these cocktail glasses that were augured out of ice. And it was really cool. And it was the Absolute Vodka Bar. I thought it was so cool. The doorway was in the shape of a vodka bottle from Absolute, because that's a Sweden type of brand. But anyway, they had these square cocktail glasses with the center augured out, and that's what you drank your
Uh-huh.
cocktail out of. And
Uh-huh.
I thought that was really cool. So when I saw these, I thought that'd be perfect to make like a little crystal type of cocktail glass, but make it pool safe. So make it plastic. But I couldn't figure out how to get the lid on and what kind of lid to put on it, because of TTB and FDA rules and all of that kind of stuff. It was like had to be tamper evident. It had to have all of these properties. Had to make sure that if I did a rum and coke type of item, that the pressure would hold inside that lid and wouldn't blow out the base and wouldn't blow off the top and wouldn't explode the sides, just from the pressure inside of it as the temperature changed. So, there was a lot of engineering involved. And yes, Google was my friend.
And a lot of
But
learning. Gosh.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
I mean,
learning. But to make a round plastic ball like that no one had ever seen before, but it just morphed into this cooler idea. And then I hired a guy in China to help me make them once I had my CAD design created. And I took it to China, had him actually make the physical model, send me some, and I was blown away when I got my first samples in the mail back from China of how it really looked in real life, with all the different colors of a buzzball. And I was so excited. And then I had to find a lid making machine. I couldn't afford an automatic machine, but I went up to Wisconsin and I found this aluminum foundry up there, and they made me an old time canning machine, like back in the olden days in the 1900s when you
oh,
canned your own tin cans.
uh-huh.
They made me a lid crimper type thing, and I sent them some of my cups, and I sent them some of the lids. They made me the machine, but it was a hand crank, and it took 22 turns to get that lid onto the cup, but it sealed it. And so I made my prototypes that way and got it up, got it started, showed it to the distributors, said this is what I want to make. And they fell in love with it and took it in and started selling. But they didn't sell very much. I had to go in and like teach them how to sell it and train them on it and then do some marketing for them.
Really? So you had to do some of the marketing for the distributors
Almost all of it, yeah.
because don't they normally do their own marketing and
No,
sales and
they say they do, but they really don't. They're more delivery agents.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow, that's such a cool story. So, and it's all the stuff that you didn't know. You didn't know what you didn't know, right?
right.
Yeah.
And I also had to learn that you read that the distributors are marketing your product. They're really not. It says it on their website that they are, but they're really not.
Mhm.
They're basically going around taking some orders of their most popular brands. They're not really pitching new brands, and they're not advocating for your brand. They'll advocate once it is a top seller, you
So
know.
what did you have to
Yeah.
do to market it? I mean, did you get ahead of
Um,
them and
I
start?
had to go store to store, actually.
Wow.
and store to store and show them, here's the product, here's how it sells. I had to have a point of sale merchandiser in my car. I had to have a blank invoice in my car. And I would write out the invoice after I went in there and talked to the manager, talked to him, told him I was the owner, told him I was trying to get this up and going. And I would sell him a $50 case and set it up for him on his store shelf. And
Mm,
then I would say, like, go to my distributor after, these sell out and order
mhm.
another. And I would give them the contact. So, and it just started to mushroom, as I did that. And then I learned that I could make contact directly through mail with all of the distributors' contacts
Mhm.
and send them a letter and
Yeah,
do that,
yeah.
just to kind of like, because I couldn't get to every single store myself. And that's why the distributors sometimes don't do it too, because there's a lot of stores.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I know been doing some driving in Texas past lately, and I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere and stopping to get gas, and you know how they'll have those big old containers full of ice with beer, and but
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of beer,
Mhm.
it was BuzzBallz.
Yeah, yay.
And I thought I
I'm
knew we were,
happy about that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I knew we
sometimes
were
I
gonna,
see those in the ice down coolers,
yeah,
for the ready to go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're really catchy, so yeah, they're smart for doing that. So did you design the product before you tried to get financing or financing first?
I designed the product and I couldn't get financing. I went to every bank in Dallas and they all turned me down. I went to Wells Fargo and was trying to get I tried to play the woman card and it didn't work. um, I did the whole presentation and everything and pitched it to them and they were like, no, we just don't invest in new brands. And even my bank that I banked at wouldn't give me any money either. So, it's like just taking a risk on a new brand that wasn't proven. And I remember one banker told me, you're just a teacher. And he said, you're just a teacher. You don't have any experience in the industry. It's a good old boy industry. They will eat you alive. And you don't have any collateral and you don't have any money. And you don't have any friends in the industry. So how are you going to make it? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to make it and come out and see my warehouse. I've taped off the floor where I think this machinery needs to go. This is how much the machinery costs. It's where I'm going to get it. This is how it's going to all put together and it'll work. And so they said, well, look, if you pledge your car and if you pledge a home equity line of credit, then we will give you the remainder of a loan. So they gave me $178,500. And they said for that $178,500 SBA loan, we have a 15% exposure to the bank. So we need to have some collateral for 15% of that. So I used my mom and dad's cows on their ranch as collateral, and
Mhm.
I used my car as collateral. And then I had to apply like 68,000 from my home equity line of credit, which was equity that I had in my house at the time.
Mhm.
And then that's how I got it started. And, I was terrified to run out of money, but I couldn't get anybody to give me a loan.
Yeah. Wow. And then you got up and going, and then money became a little more available, I guess.
Well, it took a few years
Yeah.
before money became available
Yeah.
because you basically have to prove yourself. You have to pay off your loan, which I did within a year.
Oh,
I paid
wow.
off my loan and tried to survive without the loan,
Mhm.
and tried to live off what I had.
Mhm.
Um, I hired a girl to come help me sell. She was actually supposed to be a secretary for me. And I hired her and she had just a great personality, a bubbly personality. And she was like Miss Arkansas. And, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to put her out in sales, see how she does. And she killed it. She did a great job. And, traveled around for me, and we just had the best time selling, both of us selling. And she was like my first salesperson, and she got us into Walmart. I remember she went up to Missouri and visited somebody, and she called me and she goes, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe it," with her Southern accent. She goes, "I think I got us into 3 Walmarts." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Just such great news. This is so good." And she goes, "But hang on, I got to call you back." She called me back a few minutes later and she goes, "Okay, I've got bad news." I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "We're not getting into 3 Walmarts." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I thought, well, it's probably too good to be true. She goes, "We're getting into 300 Walmarts." I'm like,
Whoa!
"What?"
Wow!
Yeah, so it was a great test. This guy named Nick Knepp, who worked for Walmart at the time, brought in our brand and gave us a test run in Missouri, and it was incredible. It blew the doors off their ideas of what an RTD could do, and they actually put us in a 30-foot long refrigerated cooler in the middle of the floor. Like where you put produce and meat and
Yeah.
things like that. It was filled with BuzzBallz, had 100 cases of BuzzBallz in it. It was unbelievable. And it went wild in Missouri. And then it started going wild in Arizona. Then it started, so anyway, Nick brought me into the Walmart headquarters in Bentonville and said, "I want you to meet all the other liquor buyers for Walmart." And so I did. And there were a couple that were like, "No, don't like it, don't like the name, don't like you, don't like product, not
Wow.
bringing it into my territories." But
Yeah.
then the others that brought it in did really well. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it was the start, and then the biggest head start for us was going to trade shows. I was about out of money on my first John, like when we first launched the product, but way before Walmart. So it was around 2011, 2012, and we were about 1 year in, and I went to this guy, and his name was Bert, and he was a broker, an alcohol broker, and he was known in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And so I brought him in and I said, "Bert, I don't understand how to cash flow this because I'm not getting enough orders to maintain cash flow and to keep this cycle going." And he goes, "Well, are you going to WSWA?" And I was like, "What's WSWA?" So I'm taking notes. WSWA, the Wine and Spirits
Oh yeah,
Wholesalers of
sure, sure.
America.
I'm going to WS. What is it?
Yeah. And so my son, Alex, and I loaded up my car and drove from Dallas to Las Vegas and got the last booth available and did a little show there with our little banner and some samples. We even had to steal, it was at Caesar's Palace. We had to bring our own cooler for ice, um, and steal ice from the floor where we were staying on because we couldn't afford the $20 bags of ice that the vendor was trying to sell to us at the hotel, for the trade show. It was so expensive. It was like $30 or something like that, or $20 for a
Right.
bag of ice, and we needed
Right.
a whole bunch of ice
Right.
for like 3 days of the show. Anyway, so we we took multiple trips to get ice. But anyway, overnight we had 15 new states that were interested in buying our product. So that was like the first real break for us. And then we thought, wow, we might actually make a go of this.
Yeah.
But until then, this is a year and a half into it. Until then, I didn't know that we would actually make it. And so after that, I had to quit my job as a teacher because I just didn't have the time to manage 15 new states plus the 3 we were already in. I just couldn't do it. I had to actually do it as a full-time job. So started the business basically in 2012. 2013 was that giant sale to Walmart. And then in 2014, because of the sales in Walmart, it doubled our income. It was incredible. Just boom, overnight, doubled our income. We had to get more equipment, get more people, get bigger warehouse space, have more storage, have more capacity. So like as we grew and got more distribution, then we needed more people, more equipment, more space, and then we'd grow again, and then we'd grow again. So it just kind of kept staggering up and up until we became this behemoth. And all of a sudden it was like wow, we're the number one ready to drink. How did that happen? So
Wow. So it took a year and a half to really get grounded, right? And then after that, it just started perhaps snowballing.
well, we doubled every year. We
Doubled
doubled in
every year.
size every year and sometimes tripled in size. So it was an amazing journey. And we put the company up for sale right around the beginning of COVID. And Sazerac was interested in us then, but passed due to the price. And, they weren't really sure on ready to drinks. They weren't really sure what was going to happen during COVID. But as you saw during COVID, everybody drank like fishes, so
Right.
it was just like
Right.
everybody they were all drinking. So
Mhm.
booze sales went through the roof. It went even heavier than what we could have expected.
Mhm.
And we just kept growing. But Sazerac circled back around and they were like, "You guys are the perfect fit for us." And I remember Jake Wentz, the CEO of Sazerac, he goes, when we tell people that Sazerac bought BuzzBallz, he goes, my guys are gonna light up like it's Christmas. They're gonna be so excited. And that made me feel so
Oh,
good,
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, you want your baby to go to good hands.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And the fact that they were just so happy because they know what kind of product and what kind of sales it's gonna do, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and with their capabilities and their sales team already on the ground, their um,
Mhm.
international presence already, it
Yeah.
was easy for them just to plug us in.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I love about entrepreneurs and the stories like yours is because Carrie Warburg Block had this where she was, she was founded on values, and she had one distributor tell her, we'll take you on, but you need to do this and this with your packaging or something. And she said, that's just not what we're about. And and then they said, well, you're just not going to make it in this business. And she stuck with that. And here she is, it's just going crazy, right? And
Mhm.
I believe you had a similar situation with your big ball, right? They said that it can't be done. And
Right.
and part of the good thing is you don't know better. Well, a lot of people don't. I don't know if you did, but you were so set on making that work, you made it work. Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's who you ask. So like you ask one person, they go, can't be done. You ask another person and say, you're crazy, can't be done. You ask a third person, and they're like, well, maybe, and maybes all you need.
Hmm.
It's like, let's try it then, let's go build it. And so we did. We made an enormously thick preform to go out there and blow that ball. And there were some design tweaks and changes we had to do to make it work, but we got it to work. And I remember we pitched it to Costco originally back in 2014, 2015, and, priced it at around $15 a ball. And Costco did a whole floor stack of it with a pallet stack. And, we had bigger is better, and all these cool slogans all over the outside
Uh-huh.
of it. It didn't sell. It
Wow,
did not
really?
sell. And
Which
so
what
I
city
I
or
don't know
state?
why. I don't know if it was our marketing or if it was just too new and people didn't know what it was or what. But one way or another it did not sell and the little balls were selling like crazy. And so we pulled it and we revamped it and we made a smaller size, a bigger size, a medium size, all the different sizes for all the different channels of buyers. And launched it again and it went wild. And then we put in some special flavors, then it went wild again. And we were a convenience store brand primarily. People
Yeah.
were buying us in convenience stores, 7-Elevens and things like that, Circle K. But what was happening was, they were like, what are these big ones? And they were like, I don't think we can sell these. They take up too much real estate on the shelf. But then Circle K brought them in and they started going like gangbusters, surprisingly. And so when Circle K brought them in, a guy in California from Circle K brought them in, He had like rows of them in his store, like eating up a whole row of shelves, and
Wow.
people were buying them like crazy. So then it started taking off in all the other convenience stores too. So
So
very proud of that.
did one state do better than another state, for example?
California was always our best state in terms of distribution. Texas was always pretty good. It fluctuated. Depends on the distributor. Very much
Oh,
depends on the distributor.
oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's shift gears just a little bit into culture and leadership style. Experts say experts in the leadership field say that more and more leaders need to be flexible, creative, and adaptable. And what I've learned about you is you definitely rank high in these styles. And the reason I say that is because of what you did during COVID. You set up a school for your employees, kids, and you provided breakfast and lunch and all kinds of things like that. I think you hired teachers or facilitators. And then I don't know if there's a separate time or not, but you provided meals for employees. You had a cook on staff, right? Tell us about that. And then I think you made yourself essential, and I thought alcohol was essential, oddly enough, during that period. So tell us about that window of time.
That window of time was very scary for everybody because we all thought we were going to die. We all thought, we were going to get COVID from each other. It was very hard to keep employees from getting scared of each other and at work. Everybody had to wear a mask, but you couldn't buy masks anywhere because masks were sold out. You couldn't get hand sanitizer anywhere because that was all sold out. You couldn't get vitamins or Band-Aids or Tylenol or anything like that. It was all sold out. And so I got on Alibaba and I talked to some of my Harvard cohorts that I went to school with too. And I was like, I need masks and I need bottles. I need, all kinds of things that I need. And I imported from China and I was told, you're going to import it from China, these masks, but what's going to happen is the government's going to seize it at the port and take it for the better use of all Americans, type of thing, and you're not going
Right.
to ever see it and get it.
Yeah.
Um, but I eventually did get it. So I had all these masks and I told my employees, look, you need to go get your COVID shot, which, some of them rebelled. They were like, nope, not going to do it. I'm like, well, okay, well then you'll have to be fired because I have to do it for the better good for everybody. And if you won't get COVID shot, then you might get COVID and you might pass it and don't want you, giving it to other people.
Hmm.
So, you can have your choice, but I don't want you here if you can't protect others.
Right.
So, that was the first line in the sand. So that was tough. It was tough because I had to have everybody there to work in a warehouse. You can't make product if you don't come to work. But employees couldn't come to work because their kids had to stay at home because schools were closed. And they had to do online learning. And when you have little kids like elementary, kindergarten, that kind of kid, they can't stay at home with older brother or grandma or anything like that. And most of them most of my employees couldn't afford a nanny or a, stay-at-home babysitter. So
Sure.
anyway, I started this school, and I bought a TEA certified teacher and had her come in. She was a great tutor, a great teacher. And, we had kids in Garland schools, Fort Worth schools, Dallas schools, Plano schools, everywhere schools. And they all brought in their own personal device that they were supposed to use for school, a PC. We had headphones. We set up a conference room, created a classroom for them, had an assistant teacher for PE and art and dance and other things. And then, my employees started work at 6 a.m. So they needed to drop their kid off at 6 a.m. or just before. So we had to have that, somebody there early in the morning to accept the kids, get them going on their homework, give them a snack, make sure that they've eaten and that they've, done their stuff, getting ready for school at 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m., they got online, put on their headphones, did their school stuff. They had their lunch breaks, they had their activity breaks. And then at the end of the day, they would go home with their parents. The other thing was interesting during COVID was, I had a team meeting when it first started and employees were confused. And so they were like, I don't want to be here. I'm scared to be next to each other. We had the meeting outside and, we were all spaced apart and did all the social stuff that we were supposed to do. But I asked them, who's scared? And some of them raised their hand and I raised my hand too. And I said, we're all scared. We're all worried we're going to die from this. Chances are someone will die from COVID. We don't know. But I know that you need a paycheck to pay your rent. And I know that I need you to come to work to get that paycheck. And I need it to continue the business. I don't know if the business can succeed if we shut down for a few months. I just don't know if it can carry on. And I said, look, everybody's going to wear a mask. We're going to cook differently because we had to cook on staff for lunches every day, but we cooked in separate meals. They ate separately instead of all together. We did our spacing. We did all of our stuff. But one of the other things we had to do too was, making booze. Was that essential or not? Because I mean, food, gas, hospitals, those were definitely essential. It was clear. But I couldn't get a straight answer from anybody in the city if we were essential or not making alcoholic beverages. And so I said, well, what we'll do is we'll make ourselves essential. We'll figure out how to make hand sanitizer out of our alcohol. And, some companies were doing that, but
Is it flavored hand sanitizer?
we gave away $500,000, $500,000 in hand sanitizer that we gave away. And people were like, oh, can I talk to you about your hand sanitizer? I want to buy everything you make. I want to resell it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope, that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this because of the betterment of mankind. And we want people in our area to survive. So I gave truckloads of hand sanitizer to every single hospital and we delivered it to them. We used our own bottles, our own FDA approved hand sanitizer formulation. We used our own grain neutral spirits, vodka to help make it. We bottled it in liquor bottles and put some spray pump things on top of it. We gave it to the airlines. We gave it to the grocery stores. We gave it to all the lab corps. We gave it to the Federal Reserve. We gave it to the Coast Guard, the Navy. We gave it to all of the different entities that we could think that were essential that had to have people in them all the time.
And that must have
So
cost a lot of money
it cost a
on
lot of
you.
money and people felt like it was a labor of love to do it. We all volunteered our time and came in and did it and built it, labeled it, shipped it, gave it away. And people were so grateful. They were like, how much can I pay you for it? I'm like, nope, it's not for pay. It's for the betterment of mankind. And so they loved that, that was the message. And I don't know that got us any sales or anything like that, but it kept us in business. And while we were making hand sanitizer, we could also make BuzzBallz.
So you were able to kind of offset any cost with the sales of the BuzzBallz, I take it.
No, we didn't offset any costs. It was sunk cost, but we were able to stay in business with
Okay.
BuzzBallz and continue to sell. But
Yeah.
it did take a hit, of $500,000 for sure of, just trying to stay afloat,
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So, one thing I love about what you said was you sat down with your employees and you were vulnerable with them. And it's like, hey, I'm
Mhm.
scared too. And the fact of the matter is I need you here and you need money. You were just real and authentic, is what
Mhm.
I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And I
The
know,
other thing that I did too that was I included my kids and the smartest guys that were engineers in the room. And I said, you guys need to go figure out the formulation for hand sanitizer. I need you to research. I need you to Google. I need you to figure it out. You need to talk to the FDA. You got to figure out this formulation. You need to figure out how we're going to source this stuff. How
mhm,
are we going to get glycerin? How are we going to get this or that? And I remember one day we were talking to our plant manager and we needed 50 gallons of glycerin. You know what glycerin is?
kind
It's
of.
like a slippery, kind of oily,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. right?
Uh-huh.
But I needed food grade glycerin to put in this hand sanitizer, like safe
Mm-hmm.
glycerin. And and my African American plant manager at the time, he said, "Well, I know where to get glycerin." I'm like, "Where can I get glycerin?" He goes, "You go to every hair care store. You go to every African American hair care store." So we all split up, scoured the city, went to every like vitamin store, every African American hair care store, bought 100% glycerin, brought it back, dumped it in a barrel, and just tried to, take an 8-ounce bottle, dump it in, take another 8-ounce bottle, dump it in, and just keep going until you get enough glycerin to make the hand sanitizer. It was an interesting project, and my guys were amazing. They, Sammy Nassiri, Alex Kick, those guys, Charles Irvin, all those guys came together and put it together. And Cheo Cavill, put it together. We figured out the formula, got it approved. Teal Wines set up the label for it. We just made a plain ass boring label, put it on the bottle, different sizes. We ordered squirt bottles, we ordered caps for them, and then we just filled it. And everybody came and supported it and delivered it.
It's kind of like the epitome of a guerrilla business. You just scramble and make it happen, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I think my employees will remember that, like,
mhm,
creating the safety manual for COVID. What are we going to do? What are our protocols? We didn't even have a protocol for a disease like that.
right, right. Yeah. And just what little bit I know of you and your story is that seems to be your jam is to go into something and not really know much about it and make it happen, right? Like glycerin, for example, we can't get that. Where do you get it? And you have an employee that's got an idea. And so you guys hit the stores. I
Let's
mean,
go.
really a cool story. And one thing I know
Yeah.
about me is one thing I love about in teams is I love that feeling of being a part of a team and there's this goal, just like, I mean, I would have loved being a part of that. I've got that kind of temperament where, okay, we're all working together, trying to make this thing happen. And then when we do, it just really feels good. So
Yeah, we had fun with it. We had like a little competition. It was like, Brad, how many did you get? I got 23. How many did you get? I got 24, just type of thing, it's 24 bottles of glycerin.
yeah.
So
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
but I think empowering the employees that you have and their strengths, this person's strengths and that person's strength, and their weaknesses too,
Mhm.
but to
Yeah.
like play on their strengths and go, this is what I need you to go do, execute, and
Mhm.
they do it. Also, it wasn't so easy. Sometimes like the getting the shots was not easy. I brought in the National Guard. They came in and they would have people that would deliver on site, give you your COVID shots for free. So they would do it for big companies. They'd bring in a couple people that would deliver shots. Um, but I remember I had to sit down with a couple of very stronghold type of employees to just talk to them one on one and explain why my madness was that everybody had to get COVID shots because these
Mhm.
were guys were anti-COVID,
Yeah. Yeah.
anti this.
Sure.
And they were staunch, about it. They were vocal about it. They were, and they were going to tell everybody their opinions. So I brought them in and talked to them one on one and figured out what was making them tick and what they were scared of. And they ended up actually going out and supporting me and flipping it around.
Wow. See, that is
And
a sign of great leadership. Just sitting down with the people and being real. I love that story. Um, we're we're later than I thought. So just a couple more questions. What was your toughest obstacle, you think, over all
well,
the
I think it
years?
depends on the time, money always at the beginning was the biggest obstacle is
Mhm.
making sure I had enough to survive and keep the business running. During COVID, of course, it was fear of dying. And, I think as you go through the business, it's like the fear of growth too, because, you're growing so big, you're just like, well, when is enough enough? Should we stay here where we are or should we continue to expand? If we continue to expand, we need more warehouse space, more people, more stuff, more da 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 da, da, and it just gets bigger and harder to manage. But I think there's like a million milestones, and like I said, it's a stepping stone type of thing. You tackle one thing and you get another problem. So.
Right. What does success mean to you now? And has it changed from when you started out?
Well, success to me in the very beginning was having enough money to live on.
Hmm.
So it was a very basic need. And success to me now is enjoying the happiness that I've created for myself and my family, and just being so proud of this product that I built, and being able to see it everywhere, all over the world, and people sending me pictures. It just makes me very proud to be the
Yeah.
BuzzBall queen, and to
Yeah. Yeah.
have created something that's a worldwide brand. It makes me very proud.
That is cool. That's something to be very proud about. Um, how has your personal definition of leadership evolved over time?
To me, leadership is about being real. It is about connecting with the person and having an understanding. I think if somebody works for you but doesn't trust you because you haven't spent enough time with them and you don't know them well enough, then there's going to be a pushback, a resistance. And I think that leadership comes from developing that trust, getting to know them, getting to know their wife or spouse or kids or troubles or problems,
Hmm.
but and all that takes time. It takes time away from all the admin work that you want to get done. But it pays off, because when you need them to roll up their sleeves and do something for you, they bend over backwards and do it.
Yeah.
And that's the type of team that I created. And we had parties together. We gave out Christmas presents. We celebrated together. We cried together. We worried together. We did everything together. We even invented products together. We'd sit in my office and get drunk and come up with funny names and funny flavors, and they got to be a part of that creative process.
Uh-huh.
The research process. They were in charge of so many different things. And you know, when I left at 1,000 employees, it was like I hardly knew everybody's names. So it's hard to get to know everybody, but you do know your first line or two of leadership underneath you for sure. But once you top over like 50 to 100 people, it's hard to get to know everybody.
Yeah.
Just don't beat yourself up. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. Last question. So you've sold your baby, so to
Yeah.
speak. And
Mhm.
so, do you have any new passions, businesses, or creative projects that you're planning on?
I do,
taking on?
I want to write a movie. I want to write a book.
What
I
kind of
haven't
movie
done
or
either
book?
yet. Well, I want to write a movie and a book about my journeys through BuzzBallz, and the whole background of it, and some of the funny things, some of the funny stories and the adventures that we had. And then I started a company called Gourmetland, and Gourmetland is a concept that I had, that I would make some barbecue sauce and dips and things like that, and in custom containers. And we're just in R&D right now and determining if it's going to work or not in terms of the packaging. And I already have the recipes and so on, but I'm not sure that, I have to do it, So I
Right.
think since that urgency isn't there, it's taken a little longer, and I'm not as much in a hurry.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then our family office, just gifting. I gave $30 million to Texas Women's University recently, to build the entrepreneurship school and school of business there, to help other people. That's where I got my executive MBA
Hmm.
and started this company from. And so I knew that I could give money to Harvard, I could give money to the University of Montana, other places where I've gone. But I felt like Texas Women's University needed the money more, and I could build a little legacy there of a great entrepreneurship school.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I went to UNT, but I know I've heard nothing but great things about TW, and it's more than just nursing. They used to be just a big nursing school, as I recall.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Well, is there anything you can think of that you would like to share? That
I just think that, leadership is an important part of being an entrepreneur or being a parent. And you have to get to know your employees, because I think employees quit bad managers.
Mhm.
They don't quit the job. They quit the bad manager because they hate them so much. But if you have a good company and a good company culture where you band together, you think and you collaborate and you help each other out, um, you just build this family-like culture. And I think that from an entrepreneurial, smaller company perspective, that's a great way to be. And then, of course, as you get bigger, you have to abandon that culture and go to a corporate culture,
Mhm.
which is a little tougher, a little stiffer, a little more rule-driven.
Yeah.
And most of that's just because of litigious people out there that want to sue you for every little thing.
Mm.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I probably should have been sued in my in my small company for the risque and funny things that we did. But
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it's all good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I know it wasn't the ideal day, but I appreciate you doing that. And
Absolutely. Well,
congratulations on your product, and watching your baby grow up and leave the nest.
yeah,
It's really cool.
it's been quite a journey. It's been a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.